Hello everybody, it's Docs back with yet another late night recording, but this time not King's Knights, I regret to say, as much as I want to keep on playing it. It's just too late and I'm too tired and, well, I can't go to bed right yet for certain personal reasons. So instead I decided just to do a quick little video on Fire Emblem Heroes. And this is going to be a slightly different video than what I normally do. Normally I just do gameplay and scream at myself, but this time I was thinking I would do a little bit of strategy talk, more or less, about the game. And, well, mostly I'm just showing off my Armor Emblem team, which is my pride and joy in this game right now. And as you guys can see, I've invested in it a little bit just looking at Zephiel here, and then also my Drog and Effia, which I actually bothered to 5-star. So jumping right into it, I guess we will focus on my team leader Drog, who, as you can see, I actually S-supported with, so that gave all of his stats a pretty nice little boost, which is part of the reason why it is that his stats are so absurdly high. The other part goes to Fury 3, which gives an extra 3 to all of his stats. So all of his stats right now are about 5 higher than what they would ordinarily be on their own. His other S support is with Hector, which is ironic, and for those of you who are unfamiliar with Fire Emblem 6 and its story, turn away for about 3 seconds, that way I can say this. It is ironic that Zephiel and Hector be S-supported with each other, as Zephiel actually kills Hector. Alright, you guys can come back now. So Zephiel is kind of my main gun on my team, which is probably pretty obvious just looking at how overall beastly that he is. He has his highest tier weapon, which would be his Ekisax, however it would be pronounced, which has a might of 16, like most of the legendary weapons similar to it in the game. And it comes with Threat and Defense 2 attached to it as a weapon skill, which is pretty useful. It gives that -4 defense to his opponents, which effectively increases his damage output by another 4 points, so in a way you could say that he has 61 attack, even though it might not always take effect because of the way that threat and defense works. Then for his special skill, I don't actually have assists on any of my units yet, except for Effie, just because she defaults with Smite. But I also attached Soul to Zephiel to kind of counter Fury. And I chose Soul over Noontime because even though it's got a little bit of a higher charge or cooldown period, however you want to call it, it does heal his HP by a lot more than what Noontime will. And considering the fact that he's not usually going to kill any enemies in a single round of combat because of his own wary fighter kind of works against him there, but then he's so slow it's impossible for him to double literally anything in the game. But the Soul is there in order to just keep his HP up, because this is a purely Armor Emblem team. I've got no kind of other healing support or anything on the team, so this is the only way that he can keep his HP up. And then he's got enough HP. He's got 60 HP, which means that he can go through about 10 rounds of combat under the assumption he takes no damage during any of those rounds of combat before Fury will reduce his HP down to 1. And then Fury can't actually kill him on its own, but it can bring him down to that 1 HP, which will leave him vulnerable to just about anyone to be able to kill him, no matter how bulky he is. And then Wary Fighter, as I mentioned, is just there to kind of make up for his lacking speed, because he's so slow. He's literally one of the slowest units in the game. On its own, he's got like 16 speed. He's only even got 21 because of he has Fury 3 and then the S support with me. And then for his C skill, I currently have Fortify Defense 2, but what I'm working on getting for him is Fortify Armor, but it's kind of expensive, and I spent a little bit too much time experimenting with A skills for him, which resulted in a lot of wasted SP. But I am getting there on the SP, so eventually he will have Fortify Armor, which will allow him to boost any adjacent armor type units. Their defense and resistance will go up by 6, which for an armor emblem team is pretty badass, considering the fact that pretty much there is no armor type unit with bad defense, and then the extra resistance is always nice. And of course, the reason I attached it to him is if you look at his defense and resistance, on their own, they're already extremely high, and then with the other supports that he'll be getting, the ward armor, which I have on Drog, and then whenever he's adjacent to Hector, he gets plus 6 total to both his defense and resistance, which means he'll be having, under the best case scenario, 49 defense and 35 resistance, which is pretty crazy, guys. It's nuts. Which most enemies, without having a pretty big weapon advantage, won't be able to do very much damage to them. Even Sapphire Lances that I've gone up against can barely scratch him sometimes if they don't have very high attack. And then, of course, his big feature would be that 57 attack that he has. Now, his one weakness is that despite all of this bulk that he has, he actually is pretty vulnerable to being attacked from afar. Blue mages can usually ruin his day, but he can take hits from green mages especially, and then red mages he can usually survive a couple of hits, but blue mages are about Zephiel's only real weakness. I've even, in Arena, he 1v2'd a Hector and a Black Knight, both of them fully invested in, and he easily stomped both of them by himself. Next, we'll be looking at Hector, who, as you know, is S-supported with Zephiel, despite the irony of that. Hector's weapon of choice is Armads, which is also a legendary weapon with that beautiful 16 might, and it has a built-in quick riposte 2, which honestly most of the time isn't very useful. As soon as he takes more than a couple of points of damage, his quick riposte on his Armads no longer works, and so half the time he usually only gets to activate it once per battle, and then that's it, so I try not to rely on it too much. And then most of his skills are what he defaults with. He has Pavis, which I've been considering swapping for maybe Ignis, or if I can get a hold of a spare one, Draconic Aura, but for now Pavis does its job well enough, and it does help him whenever something like a dragon gets close to him, because of the fact that they attack using magic, and as you can see, he doesn't have very much resistance, so that 50% resistance to damage is definitely helpful. Hector is infamous for the fact that he comes with distant counter, and he is the only one who comes with a distant counter A skill, and as most of you probably know, that means he can counterattack from any distance, and with his fairly high 55 attack, and this is just raw, natural, I have no other anything which is boosting his stats. This is his natural base attack, 55, which is pretty gnarly, I'd say. This means that he's going to be doing a lot of damage to anyone who attempts to attack him. And then, of course, it was obligatory. I threw Vantage 3 on him, though I am considering that maybe something like Brash Assault wouldn't be a bad idea, because Brash Assault 3 I am fairly certain takes effect when he drops below 75% HP, which means that as soon as his quick riposte is gone, then his brash assault activates pretty much. So that'll make up for the uselessness of Armad's weapon skill. And then for his C skill, he has Goad Armor, which boosts speed and attack of all of his armored allies within 2 spaces. You guys can read, you guys can see what it does. So that means that Zephiel, whenever he's directly adjacent to Hector, will actually get a passive +6 to his speed and attack, but then whenever he's a space away from Hector, it'll be a +5 to both. But if you guys remember, he's got that 57 attack, so even a +5 passive brings him up to 62 attack, which is just absolutely insane. Hector's own stats are pretty good just by themselves. I actually pulled him with a low HP stat, which is why I have the HP +3 Sacred Seal on him to kind of make up for that. And he is plus attack, which is part of why his attack is so high. He lacks much speed. His defense is actually somewhat low for an armor unit, but it's still high enough that most enemies really can't hurt him much, and then like most armor type units, he lacks in much resistance. So mages of just about any kind, blue mages are the only ones which really aren't much trouble to him, can cause him some problems, though I've had him sit still in the fire of several mages at once, and as long as I wasn't being stupid about it and entirely bold, he managed to come out alive, not necessarily unscathed. Now this right here is probably one of my most controversial builds that I've ever done for one of my armor units. This is Drog, who, as you guys might be able to surmise, I am doing a quad hitter build with. I kept his default Brave Sword Plus, which sports a rather sad 8 might, but I make up for it by giving him Death Blow 3, which means while he's attacking, he gets +6 to his attack, and with the base 41, that means he'll be having about 47 attack whenever he is attacking. And then that works well with the Brave Sword, because the Brave Sword's double hit takes effect only whenever he's attacking. And then here I have Desperation, which goes into my quad hitter idea. And the reason why this is kind of a controversial one is because on surface value, he doesn't look like he could be a quad hitter. Because of his Brave Sword taking off 5 from his speed, he only has 28 speed. And you guys should note that this Drog is actually a plus speed nature, they usually call it. I call them modifiers because that's the traditional Fire Emblem terminology. But it actually does work because of the armor buffs. Whenever he's within 2 spaces of Hector, that is a +4 to his speed, bringing him up to 32. If he is adjacent to Effie, who has my Hone armor, at the start of a turn, that is +6 to his speed, which brings him from 32 to 38. And then he is S-supported with Effie, so when he is adjacent to her, he has 40 speed on top of the other buffs, or if he's 1 space away from her, he has 39, which is actually pretty high. He's not guaranteed to be able to double every unit with that level of speed. There's several units who are actually over 40 speed. I believe that Takumi is one such example. He has 43. I don't know. I haven't touched my Takumi in ages. I've actually been considering feeding him for his close counter because mine is a minus attack modifier, which really for Takumi is pretty bad. And then the Desperation I have on there because he is a quad hitter. So he's actually fairly tanky with 39 defense, and then he's got that much lower 18 resistance. So he's not likely to fall very low on his HP. but then with that desperation, whenever he does start to fall low, he'll be doing all of those 4 attacks all at once. Of course, whenever you have Death Blow 3, which adds +6 when attacking, so he has 47 attack on his own, not considering extra buffs. With all of the extra buffs, he'll actually be doing, he'll actually have about 59 attack. I just kind of mathed that really fast while I'm like half asleep here, so don't quote me. Hold on, so he has the 41 plus the 6 from Death Blow brings him up to 47. Hone Armor brings him up to 53. Goad Armor brings him up to 57. And then his S support, yeah, brings him up to 59 attack. So if there is any unit which can survive 4 attacks in a row consecutively at 59 attack, you've got bigger problems, I'm afraid. So because that is a little bit overkill, I'm actually considering I'm going to swap out Death Blow for Darting Blow. I do actually have fodder for it. I'm just saving up SP, and I'm not planning on feeding anything to Drog until I've got enough SP to be able to put Darting Blow on him all at once. So for now, I'm still running the Death Blow. And then for his special trigger, I've got his default Pavis, but I am probably going to be swapping that one out too. Probably, he's most likely going to get Bonfire. But for now, Pavis is doing its job well enough on its own. And then last, but certainly not least, we have Effie, who is, if it'll let me tap on it, hate how finicky heroes can be sometimes with tapping, is S supported with Drog, as I already mentioned. Effie uses a regular Silver Lance. It has no special effects, but it has that 15 might, which is pretty nasty. I can't really remember what mods she has. I want to say she is plus defense minus speed. I'd really like to get her plus attack, but I think this is actually the only Effie I've ever pulled. So if I do want to get her plus attack, I will actually have to 5-star a second Effie in order to utilize a plus attack Effie. But for now, 55 attack is pretty solid, especially since she comes with Death Blow 3. So when attacking, she actually has 61 attack. That's by itself, that's actually scarier than Zephiel. When attacking, Effie can do more damage in one hit than my Zephiel can with his base stuff. And then she also has Wary Fighter, which she comes with to make up for that speed. And then I put Hone Armor on her, which adds +6 to her adjacent allies for their attack and speed. Effie actually doesn't get on the front lines much. You wouldn't know that looking at her SP. She normally I keep towards the back to buff either Hector or Zephiel and then Drog at the same time, because Drog is really only useful whenever you get that Hone Armor off on him. Otherwise, he really doesn't do the job that's intended for him very well. But Effie on her own hits extremely hard. She's actually about perfect. I am of course going to be swapping out all of their assists eventually for swaps and repositions. I just haven't quite decided who will get which ones yet. But otherwise, everything else is perfect. I put Moonbow on her myself. It's not like she needs the extra damage output, but it can help out with the slightly tankier enemies. It's actually helped me more often than not. There's been several enemies who might have survived an attack from her and made a counterattack that would have killed her if not for this Moonbow. So that's my Armor Emblem team. I think I about covered everything. The only changes I'm really looking at is for Zephiel. I'm going to be eventually upgrading that Fortify Defense into a Fortify Armor. If I am to end up pulling by some freak chance a second Hector, I may actually swap out his Fury for Distant Counter, but at the same time, I'm not sure if I would want to give him the Distant Counter or just merge the second Hector into my current one. But then if I do get rid of Fury, I might as well get rid of Soul, and I'm not too sure what I would swap Soul for. Most likely, I'd have to go for another Moonbow, or maybe go to his default special trigger, which is, I remember what it is, Reprisal, which, is pretty nice. I mean, it's not bad. For Hector, considering swapping Vantage for Brash Assault, which will guarantee when he's below a certain HP threshold that he'll be doing 2 attacks in a row. I'll probably be swapping out his special trigger for either Draconic Aura or Bonfire. Most likely Draconic Aura, I feel like, would be more useful. Drog, I am looking at getting rid of Death Blow 3 for a Darting Blow 3, and when I do get Darting Blow 3 gone, if it'll let me click on it, I'll be getting rid of Speed +1, and I'll be trading it for, I believe, Distant Defense is what I was going to do for him, just to give him that little bit of extra resistance to mages and such, since he's got the lowest resistance out of my team. And then Effie is actually pretty much my only completed unit, minus the Smite. And then her Sacred Seal I just have as Fortify Resistance until Zephiel gets his Fortify Armor, and then I'll probably swap it out for, I don't know, maybe I'll take away Zephiel's attack +1 or something like that, because I was actually thinking about giving him Quickened Pulse just to speed up his cooldown on Soul a little bit. But, yeah, that's about it. You can see all of my other 5-star units that I have down here. A good deal of them I actually promoted on my own. Zephiel I promoted, Drog, Effie. Hey, don't. Saber I pulled, Carol. I actually pulled 2 Carols, but I fed my other one to, rather stupidly, my Summer Tiki, because I pulled her plus speed, and I figured, oh hey, Desperation would be a good idea. It was not a good idea. Just gonna put that out there. And he was also a minus attack Carol anyway, which really wasn't working out. He could barely scratch anything on his own, but I mean, that's what his Wodeo is for, is the +10 to special triggers. He's still one of my favorite swords that I have. Here I have Masked Marth, who I am in the process of building. I have Fury 3 on her, and I have Renewal 2, but she does have Renewal 3. I just haven't gotten enough SP to get it. For her C skill, I was thinking Threaten Attack, although Threaten Speed is also a possibility. Falchion I'm going to stick with because it'd be stupid to get rid of. I'll probably give her Reciprocal Aid for her assist, and then I don't think I'll ever get fodder for Ether to give to her, so most likely I'll give her either Soul or Luna or something similar. I have the Brave Roy, who's minus attack, so I'm just kind of playing with him. Kata, who is my original 5-star. She's mostly a useless unit, though, so she's just here for sentimental value. My Elinsha, who is pretty much my pride and joy, because she has that plus speed, making her a natural quad hitter because of how OP that the Amidi is. I have Ephraim, who was actually my either 2nd or 3rd 5-star. He's plus HP, minus speed. He's fairly tanky, but also at the same time mobile, and he hits pretty hard with his Threaten and Seal defense skills. Brave Lucina, who I got for free. Haven't really played with her too much other than max her out and get all of her skills and such. I have Abel, who at one point I was playing around with on a Arcanian Knights Emblem team, I suppose you could call it. But Haven't messed with him much because I got some sort of crappy mods on him, like a plus speed, minus res, or something like that. I have Oscar, who I've actually been having a lot of fun with. He is pretty good for a cavalry unit, and considering he has a Sapphire Lance, his attack is really high, which I like. And then he comes with the, if it'll let me click on it, if it will let me, there we go, Lance Breaker, which means that he is deadly both to other lances and to sword users, so he's pretty versatile despite having a Sapphire Lance. I have my Summer Corin, who I haven't really played with much, my Summer Tiki, who I had lots of fun with, but she's kind of tough to use on her own. My Julia, who is by far my favorite mage that I've gotten so far. She's across the board neutral, but she is beautiful. I have Soren, who haven't really used much up until this Tempest trial. He's not terrible, I guess, but not a big fan of him. My cursed minus attack Takumi, who actually isn't too bad. I mean, I haven't looked at him in forever. And then lastly, my Priscilla, who I don't know when or why, but I got her 5-star somehow. I didn't promote her to 5-star, I got her as a 5-star. And yeah, she's just kind of there. Not complaining, 5-star healer, whatever. But yeah, that is pretty much my entire Armor Emblem team, which has been my pride and joy for quite a while now. I mean, they have done me extremely well. I have pretty much been indestructible of this team, except for on the odd occasion where I get screwed over and end up against an entire team of mages or something like that. And so that about wraps it up for this video. I kind of rambled a bit longer than I expected. Hopefully you guys got some ideas out of this, I guess, for future teams that you might want to build in Fire Emblem Heroes. As a friend of mine said, there's a lot more synergy building, making sure that your team works well together than what you might expect out of such a simple game. And I think I figured out some pretty good team synergy, because Armor Emblem is second to none. Indestructible while dealing extreme damage. So that is all for this video, and I will be seeing you guys in the next one.